Hey, and welcome to another video here on my channel about life after age 50. So today I want to talk about something that's a little more serious in a lot of things that I deal with here, and that is ageism. So I'm 55 years old. I'm still young enough where I haven't really encountered a lot of ageism, but 3 times this week it has come up in a conversation. So number one, I was being considered to speak at an event, and I was speaking to the meeting planner. And she was a young woman, and we got talking, and I said something about my age, to which she replied, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize you were that old." Nobody in my audience, who will all be in their 30s and early 40s, can relate to people that old. So I think I'm going to have to go a different direction. Now, I get told we're going a different direction lots of times. Not everybody hires me to be the speaker at their events, and that's okay. Technically, I don't think she should have said that to me, but I sort of let it roll off my back because two things. One is she's wrong. There are a lot of people in their 20s, 30s, 40s who relate to people in their 60s and 70s. Plus, most cultures around the world, or at least many cultures around the world, actually want to hear from people who are more senior than them. So while I won't be speaking at this lady's conference, I do know that someday she herself will be 55 years old. And I just hope somewhere in the back of her mind, she realizes, oh my God, I was totally off base. Which leads me to the reason I wanted to make this video. And that is most people who look at older people as sort of out of it really have no clue. And the one thing about discriminating against people who are older, that truck is coming towards you. You know, if someone was to discriminate to someone because of some physical reason, they're a woman, their race, or if they were to discriminate them against them because of their religion, they're probably not going to become that. However, in this woman's case, someday she's going to be 55 years old. I mean, I hope so, because the alternative is death. The second time it came up in conversation was I was talking to a friend of mine who is a professional speaker who is in her late 60s. And she and I were talking about the fact that to stay vibrant and active when you're in your 60s in this profession, you need to keep yourself relevant. And she said that many, many times people have looked at her and thought, oh, well, what are we going to learn from this old woman? Only at the end of her presentation to be like, wow, that was so impactful. And people line up 20 people deep to talk to her. And the third area where it came up in conversation this particular week was with a friend of mine who is turning 50, who knew that I made this pledge to make age 50 to 75 the best years of my life. And he was really curious about it because somehow turning 50 paralyzed him. Somehow he felt that the best days were over. So we sat down, we had a glass of bourbon, and we talked. And what we talked about was, you know, if you look at your life from age 25 to 50, lots of things happen. I mean, so many things happened in that 25 years. When I look at my age, I got married at 25, and at 50, I had a daughter in college and another one in high school. And now at 55, I have a daughter who's engaged to be married, and my youngest one is halfway through college. So many things happen in that 25 or 30-year period that imagine how many experiences you're going to have from 50 to 75. Plus, you don't have to deal with raising kids. I mean, no offense to kids, but they're a lot of work. Something is sort of freeing to be this age. And so when I think of ageism, first of all, anybody who discriminates against anybody for any reason because of race or gender or religion or whatever, personally, I think that person is pretty small-minded. That person is not really looking at the big picture. In fact, every study that's ever been done that I've read says that when you have diversity in the workplace, in your friend group, in the communities that you live in, you thrive more. So diversity of all kinds is actually better. In fact, if you had a conference and every speaker was 35, you're in a bubble. Same thing about why we don't want a conference that has only white men speaking or, only one type of anything. You want to be able to shake it up. I remember in my career, I co-wrote a book called Some Assembly Required, a networking guide for women. I co-wrote it with a great business consultant named Marnie Lifshin, and she and I wrote the book. And what I found was I was then hired, because I was the co-author on this book, I was hired to speak at several women's conferences. And I said, hey, are you sure you guys don't want to hire Marnie to come speak? And she's a phenomenal speaker. And they said, no, we like our women's conference to have a few men speakers because otherwise we don't think we're doing ourselves justice. I remember that. That happened twice to me. And I remember it because I remember that when you intentionally seek out diversity, you make your event better. So if you're watching this video because you are facing ageism or you're worried about that train of ageism is coming right at you, here's my 2 tips for you. Number 1, just accept the fact that there are people out there who are jerks, who are small-minded, and who will discriminate. Because it's happened to people of, it's happened to women and it's happened to people of color for many, many years. So there are people out there who are just jerks. They discriminate. They don't have a big tent thought and they don't look for diversity. The good news is many people out there, and society is coming along and changing. Many people seek out diversity and they're looking for people who have not just different color skin or are of a different gender, but they're looking for people who have differences of thought and differences of experience. And that is where people who are a little bit more senior, maybe getting a little gray in their hair, that's where we come into play. And then the other thing is that you're just going to have to get out there, roll up your sleeves if you've been discriminated against, and get out there and do the work. You can't say, well, everyone's going to do this to me, because it's not true. And you're going to find that the right opportunity, whatever it is, whether it's for a job, in my case, a speaking opportunity or whatever, you're going to find that that right opportunity is going to come along. The great thing I've learned as I've got older is that just because one door closes doesn't mean you're done. As soon as a door closes, a window opens. So get out there and be as good as you can. Now, when you're in the second half of life, in order to be as good as you can, you've got to stay fit. You've got to be learning new things. You've got to be meeting new people. I'll tell you what, I believe the smartest thing that you can do if you're worried about ageism or if you've experienced ageism, smartest thing you can do is develop a friend group of all ages. 2 of my best friends are 31 years old. I think having those friendships keeps me young. If I only hung out with a bunch of 55-year-olds, I would only have that point of view. But I learn a lot from having friends who are in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, their 70s, their 80s. Seek out people of all ages, of all generations, and build real honest friendships with them. Make sure that you're learning and reading and growing and staying vibrant, and then stay fit so that you can keep up. As it turns out, it's not that hard to keep up when you're 55 or hopefully 65 or beyond, but you do have to put in a little bit of work. So that's my 2 cents on it. I'd love for you to share your ideas. Some of you have experienced probably some things where you've been fired or laid off. Go ahead in the comments and talk about how you've experienced ageism, what advice you have for people who are experiencing it, and then what tips you have for people on how, as we get into these senior years, how we can show those young whippersnappers, if you will, get off my lawn and let me show you how good life is. I think we have to lead by example. Hey, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to put out interesting and different videos about life after 50, and I'd love for you to come along on this journey.